Thank you very much for joining. Pleasure to have you here. As I mentioned earlier, you're more than welcome to open your cameras if you'd like. No one's going to bite. We're going to talk today about a topic that is uncommon in this meetup community. It's something more about storytelling and business rather than hardcore technology. Um, I Omid and I know each other for years now, and when I wrote a blog post a few months ago about this idea, about this topic, he invited me, hey, why don't you come and speak to the community about it, give a lecture. So I developed this deck for a number of purposes, but also for this meetup today, and I would be more than happy to share it with you. Um, whether you are a techie, whether you're a startup executive, whether you come from the business side of things, whether you're just a curious mind, if you are if you're interested about this fast changing world and what can be done in order to survive and even thrive in this world in chaos, you're in the right place. Um, this um, this idea or set of the ideas is something that I've developed over the years. I've been part of the startup and tech ecosystem for the past 20 years now, from the tech-oriented roles through the business side and through strategy and storytelling in the past few years. And over the years, helping a lot of different startups, I started seeing all these kind of patterns. And these patterns led to the development of of a certain framework that I'm going to touch very briefly, but then we're going to dive into its application later on. Today, we're going to discuss three topics. If you need to take three things from this session today, it's about the power of unchanging, about value axes, and about strategy and story, and how these things, how we connect the dots together. If you don't have your camera open, you can just the reaction or a thumbs up or a heart or something or a like button. Raise your hand if your industry is going through rapid changes. Anyone? Oh, Anton, thank you. Anyone else? Rapid changes. You're continuously adapting is slowing you down. If you have ever tried to do something about it, and if you are actively looking for better ways, this is for you. Life is not black and white. There is a lot of gray area in between. If you agree to this, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but know that life is also full of colors. But life is not just full of colors, it's also multiple dimensions, right? It's a trick of the mind. In every step of the way, another layer of reality is revealed, another way to see the world that we weren't aware of before. Today, this is an invitation to see reality anew. The counterintuitive and the power of unchanging. In the past 4 years alone, we've gone through several major events, global events. Ever since COVID, we've seen supply chain disruptions, energy crisis, the war in Russia and Ukraine, spiking interest rates, economical downturn, capital crunch, and a lot of different obviously the October 7th events. We've seen a lot of different events, major global events facing one after the other. And a few more geopolitical conflicts are about to erupt today, as it seems. In addition, in the past few years, we've seen major trends going on about climate and AI, things that are going to upend our future. Longevity, fintech, mobility, digital health, synthetic biology, energy, crypto, the creator's economy. There are so many different aspects that are about to change our lives. A few years ago, I read an article that talked about 73 implications of driverless car. The guy went through how we have leisure, how it's going to affect real estate, how it's going to change urban planning, energy consumption, funerals and death, risk, insurance companies, geopolitical conflicts around the world. 73 implications of driverless car alone. This is just one very important aspect of mobility, for example, but one aspect out of the many aspects that we see here on the slide right here. Each and every one of these verticals, this areas, this markets are about to have dozens of implications and some sub applications that are going to have cross implications in one another. For the first time in human history, we have no idea how the next 20 years are going to look like and what skills we need to teach our kids. This is a world in chaos that is moving so fast that it's really making a really painful dilemma for us. Jack Welch, the legendary CEO of General Electric in the 80s and 90s, had this beautiful quote. If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change of the inside, the end is near. The form of Darwinian wisdom. We need to adapt. We need to change faster than our environment. Unless we do that, we're going to die. There's a very big problem with that. You cannot outchange change. The rate of change the world is going at right now means that by the time you're going to reach your horizon, your business goals, launch a product, whatever you want to do, the world is going to change twice over. We need something different. We need a paradigm shift. We need to change how we see the world. Abstraction is an important tool. Abstraction simplifies an increasingly interconnected and complex world. The stronger your abstraction, the less you need to master the details. I mentioned earlier that over the years, I developed my own methodology, my own way of looking at things. And this is it. Everything in our world can be abstracted using constraints and expressions. It's a high form of abstraction. And using these two categories, these two elements, we can look at everything, abstract them, abstract reality, and find new creative pathways forward. Let's try to dig into that. Constraints, beyond being limitations, right, are modes of change. We'll see that in a second, few examples, shaping the things around them. Whereas expressions are manifestations of possibilities, actualized potential. Heavy one. Let's dig in. April Fool's is a recent example. April Fool's is a constraint, right? Every year on the 1st of April, we have April Fool's Day. But the expression is how each and every company or an individual wants to manifest the possibility of expressing what April Fool's is for them. The Great Gatsby, right, is a novel, 50,000 word novel without the letter E. The letter E, if you didn't know, is the most popular, most common letter in the English alphabet. How about writing an entire novel, 50K words, without using that letter? Ernest Vincent Wright used this constraint to write this form of expression. And there's an entire niche of these books that follow similar constraints. Love is both a constraint and an expression. It's a mode of change. It affects how our lives look like, but also a form of expression that we use, that we choose to manifest how to live our lives. Just very few examples. Constraints and expressions are not the main topic of the topic for today, this lecture today, but they are the underlying elements, and we'll see that later on. With constraint and expressions, we can see things that others don't. For example, we can see the power of unchanging. The things that remain unchanged influence our lives more than the things that don't. Space, time, gravity, budgets, tradition, memories, feelings, communities, families. All these are a form of constraints, for example. These are unchanging elements in our lives that change them and influence them and mold them in more than the things that don't remain unchanged, things that are constantly changing. All right? Jeff Bezos kept saying that people always ask him what's going to change in the world. But no one has been asking him what's not going to change. No matter how the economy is going to look like, no matter what the president is going to be, people will always look for low prices, vast selection, and fast delivery. If you build your business strategy around the things that are stable in time, going to win. Stability in time, these are unchanging elements, these are constraints. Those three elements that Bezos mentioned, low prices, vast selection, fast delivery, are constraints, but what people want. And Amazon's strategy in particular, is an expression of these constraints. Outchanging yourself to death or embracing the unchanging, that's different. That's an old game versus new game. That's what we're proposing actually here. It does not mean that clinging to unchanging elements is the sole answer, but only by positioning yourself right, and only by founding or building your business strategy around those things that are unchanging, you will be more informed even about how you want to change later on. Going back to the Amazon's example, Amazon is changing with time, including more and more elements, more technology, more innovative and creative features and benefits for its consumers, but still those underlying constraints are still expressed and still adhered to. They're still in the foundation of Amazon. Any questions so far before we continue? All right. If we go to the market and buy a kilo of potatoes, we're going to pay approximately one US dollars. But that same potato, if you're going to serve it as French fries at a restaurant and burger joints, its valuation, its worth jumps to 25 US dollars per kilo. If you're going to serve it as the very famous 3 Michelin star chef Joël Robuchon, his famous mashed potatoes, comes free with a 200 per person meal. What we're seeing here is the value axis of culinary experience, from potato through French fries all the way to mashed potatoes by that French chef. Moving up the axis, new value is created. With value axes, we have an ordering idea, similar to what Amazon said with the low prices, fast selection, fast delivery. Those are unchanging elements, stable in time, constraints. They represent customer value. Ideally, you would have an unfair advantage in. It would lie at the core of a company identity and strategy. Differentiation means that every company is its own axis. Moving up the axis or finding untapped ones unlock new value, granting a competitive advantage, competitive edge. This is what I call value creation innovation. Questions? All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Are you talking
No?
to me? Yeah, I've got a question.
Yes, please.
First of all, I really enjoy what you just said. Like, it's really counterintuitive to think this way, and it's inspiring. Can you give another example of another value axis in different, like, let's say in different industry, or
Oh,
like,
definitely.
yeah.
We're going to jump into a number of examples very, very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions? All right. So where do these things meet? Where do we see these constraints and expressions? How do you see these value axes in action in different industries, in different examples? Before we dive into that, let's talk about strategy. The key to the success of any strategy is people. And we need to attract investors. We need to resonate with customers. We need to align with employees. And we do that with a story. We do that with a reason why. The story is the strategy, said Ben Horowitz from Andreessen and Horowitz, the biggest VC today. It's also the reason for why the company exists in a way. And constraints and value axes that we saw earlier, make excellent stories. This is, for example, of a project I was involved with a few years ago. From a company called Tap Out. It's a startup from Los Angeles. That its purpose is to help kids build emotional resilience. our kids are in trouble, both in the US and recently also in Israel. They feel more stressed, lonely, depressed nowadays, leading to mental health crisis. Parents want what is best for the kids. They are lost for help with insufficient therapeutic solutions and, uh, and, and other methods. Tap outs teaches kids skills they don't learn in school in a fun way, and such as expressing emotions, identifying unhelpful thoughts, and becoming resilient to whatever life brings. And here are the value axes that we found for tap outs. It's about parents' love, doing what's best for my child. It's science-based. It's safe spaces. It's supervised. It's also fun. It's kids' first design, gamification, and peer group based. Now that we realize what those value axes are, what are those core constraints for tap outs, now it's easier to tell a story. It's a story about parents who love their child and about seeing how the child is under stress and anxiety. And it's about a fun way for kids to learn, just a seed of the story, not the whole story itself. Another example. Unplanned downtimes at factories are costlier than ever. Failing to meet consumers' expectations can cost more than just time and money. It can cost a business. Cortisense was a startup in Israel that created sensors, predictive maintenance sensors that were plugged into machinery, rotating machinery that was able to hear whether a machine is going to fail or not. It was a very simple way, simpler than ever, to predict which machines need maintenance, and whenever it did need maintenance, which teams to send and what spare parts are needed. This will solve a big problem for knowing it's about time management, it's about inventory management, it's about capital management. There are also the big benefits that stem from this. Articulating the existing value axis as well. It's for predictive maintenance. Startup in Israel was about accurate prediction, increasing the business certainty. It's a big, stable in time value axis, increasing business certainty. Businesses love reducing uncertainty and increasing certainty. It lowers risk and costs. It was also simple to use, easy to deploy. It was a plug and play sensor, very easy to use in the sense that you did not need to train your employees, your personnel, to work with this technology. It was very straightforward. Just gave them a very specific list of what needed to be replaced, when and why. Another example is from a company called Leap Commerce. It was a spin-out company from a larger brand. It was about e-commerce enablement, helping brands, consumer brands, reach their target audiences via different platforms. In the West, we're familiar with the concept with companies like platforms like Amazon, which is a big aggregator for e-commerce. In Southeast Asia market, they have not one platform similar to Amazon. They have dozens and dozens of different marketplaces, online marketplaces. Consumer brands following COVID that was forced to go online, and all of a sudden their entire competitive landscape has changed. They needed something else. They were forced to go digital. They were forced to go e-commerce, but the Southeast Asia markets they were booming, obviously, but they were also very vast and fragmented. 11 countries, over 20 languages. Consumers spread across many different online marketplaces, different nuances, mentalities, and whatnot. Leap Commerce offered and helped brands expand their market reach, has presence in every country in that geography, had warehouses, legal entities, third-party partners, shipping partners, logistic partners. They had the expertise, the know-how, and the speed to operate of the operation to help brands thrive. Why? Because they knew all these different platforms. A big corporation, like a big brand that sells consumer electronics, for example, has dozens, if not hundreds, of different barcode items it wants to sell online. Different variations, different colors, different whatever, and it needs to sell those to millions and millions of different consumers across the entire region. That e-commerce enablement was tapping from Singapore. We tapped this bigger narrative of this market consolidation that was happening. By 2030, the Southeast Asia e-commerce market is expected to hit $1 trillion US dollars. So there is a consolidation in the market, and therefore they needed to differentiate themselves and position themselves accordingly. The value access that we chose for them were about market reach everywhere in Southeast Asia with the legal and the shipping and logistic, everything that is needed. You can get to your consumers easily, and the expertise, the know-how, the speeds. If you want to push another product to the market, we can do that very, very, very fast with our experts. Last example for this specific flow. Post-COVID, again, digital interactions rose by 60%. Businesses saw that 60% increase in the share of digital interactions with consumers. In parallel, businesses were expected to embrace inclusion, something that happened more and more in recent years. Developing for inclusion is a pain. It's slow, it takes special know-how, and shifts the focus from core business tasks. In order to develop inclusive and accessible digital assets, VP R&Ds, VP engineering had to dedicate their best engineers to the task. It was very, very intensive, very, very complicated. User First created an inclusive digital assets developer tools that inclusive digital asset easily with User First. It was developer tools that helped developer teams make inclusive assets for any codes, any workflow, and any developer. You could take even a junior developer and put them on the task, and these developer tools, this solution by User First was helping them making those components, those software components accessible and inclusive. Again, tapping bigger narratives, developer tools. It was about social compliance and inclusion, and it's about simplicity. Questions so far?
I would love to know why is it presented in X's? Like, why is it?
It's a good question. It comes from the concept of differentiating and positioning. Sorry, one second. Differentiating and positioning. It comes from the strategy concept of the 2x2, where you present your positioning in the market and your differentiation. It's a form of convention to present how you're going to be different and how you position yourself against your competitors. Does it make sense?
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, it's like a way to make it comparable to other like other initiatives or other startups.
Think of it in a pitch deck, for example. The best way to show how you're better than your competitors is by showing a 2x2 matrix. And that 2x2 matrix is the best way to show how you're better because it tells it's first, it's a convention. The people on the other side, the viewers, the audience will know what this is about. And second, it's about selling a narrative. When you sell the narrative, a new narrative in the market, basically you're saying, I'm here, everyone else in the market is somewhere else.
Yeah, so it's a tool to compare, like it's a comparable, like it's a tool that helps you it helps the market to compare you and your, like, the other
alternatives.
Yeah. Okay.
With the alternatives, yes. Yeah. But not only for comparison, because you can also have a table of comparison. It's a great question. You can also have a table of comparison, but this specific tool also helps you sell new narrative. All right, because like, moving here, like if you take this vector and you say, I'm always going to be compliant with what society wants in terms of inclusion. I'm always going to be as simple as possible. This is my story. This is my purpose. This is the seed of my story.
Okay, so so you also present the factors and like in this axis. Is that what you meant to say?
It's a way to present how you're different and how you
Okay.
weave these two axes together to seed of a story and a narrative.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Let's see like another example perhaps over here. I'm always going to be the top in my class in the category in terms of market reach. No one's going to have better market reach than I am. I'm always going to have that expertise. And now you can arrange everyone else in the market, all other alternatives on these axes. And convention requires you're going to place yourself here. That's convention. What's people going to expect? But the secret to use for using this tool is to choose the axes right. This is why the axes were chosen. Unrelated to this topic today, but another idea that I like is the three axes of glory. Basically, you need these two axes and another one of the hockey stick in a way, and you form yourself a winning strategy. Once you know what your two value axes are, how you're going to sell yourself and to sell a new outstanding narrative in the markets, how you position yourself against your competitors, and once you have that growth strategy plan, you have a very solid place to start with your strategy, value creation strategy, and pitching potential investors. Make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for this question. Any other questions? All right. In the following section, before we conclude, a few examples of companies. Some of them were three companies, three examples. Some of them I was involved with, some not. That involved not weren't customers, but I, I helped them or I saw them from the sidelines. The first one is a early stage startup from Israel that operates in the logistics space, helping freight forwarders generate quotes to their customers. Freight forwarders are travel agents for cargo, for shipping cargo. If I want to send my container to the other side of the world across danger oceans, I will go to a freight forwarder. Then that freight forwarder agent will help me find the best route, the best price, the best whatever. The problem is that since COVID, there were price fluctuations going on. Until COVID, all prices were pretty much the same. It was very easy for freight forwarders to agents to sell sales representatives to issue a quote very quickly and to get the order from the customer. But ever since COVID, something happened. Prices started to fluctuate and different prices all the time, different every day, different prices. And it took up to 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours to generate a single quote to a customer. Remember, this is the customer who wants to use your service, but in order for you to tell them how much it's going to cost, it's going to take you more than a day in some cases. And even when you deliver the quote, eventually, it's not always accurate. Sometimes you need to add like additional charges afterwards. So this startup was all about fast and accurate quotes. There were these are data experts that saw this as a data problem. They will take they will use their sophisticated data technology to plug into to connect to various sources, extract this information, clean it, maintain it, update it, and in case of need, whatever needed, in a click of a button, they can generate a quote which is fast in a matter of seconds and accurate without these errors. So these two values that they chose these two values about speed and about accuracy, but they were missing a very big opportunity. Customers, their customers, freight forwarders' customers, seek more control and confidence. When you hear a potential customer or a freight forwarder thinking about their customers, they hear that sometimes customer calls in and ask how long this is going to take and whether their cargo is going to be stored underneath the rooftop or air conditioned for a number of reasons. They care about obviously the route, they care about the price, the duration, about various things. So why, if they always seek control, why go through a sales representative? Why not have like an Expedia-like experience where can they just do whatever they want? They can have more control. They can generate as many quotes as they wish before they make a purchase, before they submit the order. On the other side, when things do happen, things go south, they want something with someone with familiar face. It's a relationship-based business in a sense. They want the same culture, the same mentality, the same face, the same language, the same business hours. They want confidence and trust. So they want better integration with global transportation network. The axes were not about speed and accuracy. The right axes are about control and confidence and trust. And with that same data technology, we have a much bigger story, a better positioning. That was the lost opportunity. Another example, in recent months, DID, an Israeli company that creates AI avatars, launched a new campaign with a new branding, talking about interfaces evolved. We're talking about natural user interface. Remember, DID creates avatars, AI avatars that you can plug, and they have a face, they have obviously with eyes, they can speak to the user. They call it again natural user interface. Natural falls short in distinguishing their value proposition. I can speak to a voice assistant like Siri or Alexa, maybe not cutting edge AI these days, but still I can speak to them with my natural voice and they will understand me. So why natural user interface? It's not edgy, it's not distinguished enough, not valuable enough. But the reality is that our brains are wired to focus on faces and on eyes. And avatars stand out by commanding human attention. By speaking with an interface to an interface that has eyes and a face, my attention is grabbed better. This application is very, very interesting with various of high risk, high reward interaction between computer and humans, with information kiosks, with authorities, with digital health assistants, with a variety of the things, crowd control. I can do a lot of different things that require humans to pay attention to something. So it's not about the natural user interface, or it's not about the evolution of interface. It's about commanding human attention. And with this positioning, it's the same exact product, just a bigger story, a bigger opportunity. It was a missed opportunity. One last example for today. Wonder Veggies is the company from this food tech startup. They have a unique value proposition that has a very potent, they can spray, or remember the exact form, they enrich veggies with probiotics, and they're very proud with its potency. They claim that their solution, by consuming probiotics using their solution, you would get more probiotics as opposed to the common yogurt in the supermarket, for example. But again, they were missing a much bigger story. It's not about the potency. The food tech industry is ongoing major disruptions these days. It's in order to feed the circa 50, I'm sorry, it's the circa 2050, 2050, approximately 10 billion mouths are going to be on Earth. We're going to need to feed 10 billion mouths. We're going to do that sustainably. Probiotics in the West today are mostly coming from unsustainable sources. And the sustainable sources of probiotics, like in the East, are not very much available in Western cuisine. You don't have that much. Their positioning, their value axis of talking about potency is missing an opportunity. Their proposition is about highly available and sustainable source for probiotics in the West. The same exact product, better positioning, bigger story. Any questions? Was either so good or you guys figured everything or too shy to ask, because this is the end of our chat for today. Questions?
You're too good.
Today we talked about the power of unchanging. We discussed value axis, and we saw how everything interconnected, how we connected the points together. If you have any questions, I would love to answer. If you have any thoughts, any comments,
Can you please
anything
go
that
back
was,
to the previous slide? Okay, I want to copy it. The one, the next one, the one that summarizes all the points.
oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, this one. Thank you. Thank you.
Omer, thank you very much. It was a
My
great
pleasure.
lecture. It was very
Thank you.
interesting. And we should do it more often.
Thank you
With
so
pleasure.
much. Really inspiring and it worth a TED.
Worth a TED.
Yeah,
Ooh.
definitely. I think it's so how would you say? It's so unpredictable to speak about unchanging in our times. In a way,
Mhm.
you brought it, and it's like it's innovative. In it's not being innovative, like taking the taking the change and speaking about it and this way, it's blew my mind, and it worth it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for this compliment.
Yeah,
I'll think
thank
about
you
it.
very much. Great presentation.
Thank you kindly.
I just wanted to ask a question. I probably missed something, but I didn't get where you're leading. Like you have a product or you have a solution or something. Like what is the direction? Like what is the purpose of this presentation?
Enriching your mind, broadening your
So
perspective.
just to tell me that these things are possible. This is
What
great. Thank you very much.
what I do, I find those core constraints, those value axes for companies.
I see.
Because let's say you want to build a strategy based on those Amazon's three value axes that we mentioned. You cannot today. Amazon is already expressing that idea of low prices, vast selection, and fast delivery. How would you do yours, right? You need to pick something that differentiates you and positions you different than your alternatives and competitors in the market. You need to find your unique ones. You can go to I can give you a list of like business value elements: increasing revenues, lowering cost, improving customer experience, reducing risk, complying with regulation, increasing your velocity. It's a great place to start, right? A great list of value elements that could be your value axes. But there, as you saw here in these different projects, each one is different, a bit different. DID, it's about commanding attention. Who else has that value axis? Not exactly the same. So it's different positioning that can win you markets and can create new category. That started logistics market about that launched their product with that speed and accuracy that missed that opportunity to create a brand new category in the market that could be extremely valuable and successful. So uncovering those hidden value axes, those hidden core constraints, building on top of them, moving up the value axis to unlock new value is value creation innovation. It's the way to create categories and win markets. And this is what I do. This is the service that I offer.
Okay, now got it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
You have a question in the chat.
Question in the chat. Everything sounds intuitive. All right. What does sound intuitive? It sounds very intuitive when we present it like this, right? But in a world that changes so fast, we saw that slide, the slide that speaks about the vast different implications of everything. everything is going to change so fast. And we mentioned, even I think in the meetup description, talked about that quote from Yuval Noah Harari about that we have no idea how the world is going to look like and what skills to teach our kids. It's counterintuitive that we need to rely on things that remain unchanged. It's counterintuitive. Going to be maybe going to be same as ever, and maybe not. But people don't ask what's not going to change. Realizing, finding what's not going to change in your own industry, in your own market, in your own problem domain is not easy. I invite you guys to tell me a bit about yourself. If you'd like, the one who asked, you're more than invited. I don't bite to open the mic and tell me what's the vertical, what's the market you're in, and maybe realizing what's not changing in your market is very intuitive, but in the vast majority of markets and companies I've seen, it's not that trivial. Even let's go ahead, please.
So I guess I registered for the event. 'Cause I work in technology, privacy, and starting to get into AI stuff. And for me and customers, their heads are just kind of blown by how fast the world is moving. And even people who are not working within tech, who are seeing the world around them constantly changing and be a different place than it was 20 years ago when people had more stable employment. People had didn't need a college degree to be able to go on to make good money. These sort of things feel like they're changing, and it's hard to really put your finger on the pulse of how and where they're changing or what to do as a result of them changing. And so I guess registering for this event, I was hoping that you might be able to articulate a bit more on the personal side as opposed to like the professional or product side of how does an individual who is basically coming out of high school or college with a certain expectation, with the world constantly changing, how do they adapt to something that is always a moving target without becoming exhausted or broke in the meantime?
Great question. All right. So when there's a nice quote by Shane Parrish from the Knowledge Project saying that when you know what's going to happen, prepare. When you don't know what's going to happen, position. Position. In a sense of everything's going to change. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to position yourself to survive and thrive? The value access piece and the example of the different companies I shown afterwards are application of the method that I shown earlier, the high abstraction form of constraints and abstraction, constraints and expressions in the business strategy application. But it works and it is applicable in the personal aspect, individual aspects in the same way. If you're gonna and constraints in a way are precursor to identity. Know that we talked earlier, Michal's question about why do we position those axes in this matrix form. The matrix form because this is a precursor to the company's identity and narrative. But it's the same thing. You ask yourself as a person, as an individual, what's going to change? Everything is not going to change. What I'm going to do? What sort of skills do I need to have in order to thrive in this environment? You tell me, right? What are the main or the constraints that you can can put on yourself, right? Imposes is the word I was looking for. What are the self-imposed constraints that you can have in order to survive in this situation? So it's about not fearing change, for example, but wearing of it. It's about you mentioned privacy, for example. Privacy as a market background in consumer privacy a bit. It's about the freedom to express yourself. It's about the fear of not being able to express yourself. These are
Can you
constraints.
pick the matrix, the marketing matrix that you had up before, and we talked about it briefly in a different context?
Yeah.
Kind of walk us through and just spitball one of the scenarios where, let's say, I know someone who's going to college or about to go to college. How do they, in a world that's who knows what the world's going to be in 20 years or 10 years? How do they know what to go into school for a career, or how do they position themselves in a way that will enable them to have the greatest potential freedom, whatever the outcome is 20 or 10 years from now?
I understand. I understand the question better now. This is not the right tool for this. This is the 2x2 matrix is a tool to distinguish or to sell narrative, to sell the idea of a new narrative to a customer or potential investor. This is not about helping an individual pick what to learn in school.
Right. I mean, I don't want to make it sound overly simplistic in that way, but rather, if faced with a set of choices, and the ability to foresee the midterm to long term is virtually impossible. How do you position yourself personally, whatever the scenario, such that you would be able to accommodate or be capable of addressing whatever that might be? So you could take school, you could take career choice, you could take whatever.
All right, let's try to tackle this question. What do you think? What should a person go to school for? What's going to probably remain needed, right? If we're going to think of the world in the next 20 years or 30 years from now, assume we're not going to humanity is not going to annihilate itself in a nuclear holocaust, right? Nuclear war. What's going to happen? You're going to still have probably like big economies, big empires. We're going to still have STEM subjects. We're going to still be very much revolving around technology and economy, right? We can start to think of what's going to, it's a job for futurists, right? But how it's going to look like, try to position ourselves, not prepare because it's not, obviously it's not certain, try to position ourselves for success. Obviously, if you're going to understand how, fresh example, right? AI products work and what are needed in order to thrive or to succeed or to be valuable in a world of AI, going to work better. In the longer term, they speak about that AI is going to take all our jobs in one case, one version or another. It's about being yourself and do what you want to do, right? It's about universal basic income and whatnot. It's a very unrelated discussion, some sort of unrelated discussion. So I'm not sure I want to take everyone's time, but this is how I'm going to think about it. It's about finding who you are, what you want to be, and these are the core constraints of your identity and what you need. How I would recommend my kids to excel and do for their future, to build their future, to position themselves for the future. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I wasn't able to nail the perfect answer. Any more? That was a great question. Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so in agriculture sector, what are the things you see that's been changing so fast, at least nowadays?
In the agriculture space?
Yes.
I don't know much about that space. I had very little experience with it. But from what I do know, first of all, we mentioned earlier, it's about doing more with less. It's about, there are major trends, as I mentioned earlier. By 2050, we said that we're going to need to feed 10 billion mouths. That's a lot of mouths to feed. So, and obviously we're going to need to do that sustainably. Otherwise, we're going to kill the planet more than we do today. There's another thing that's going on, another unchanging element that's going on, and it has to do with longevity. In terms of longevity, we mentioned that we're going to have 10 billion people on Earth, but sometime after, the global population is going to decline. And that means we're going to have more and more elderly people. I think the number was 1 out of 5 people, 1 of 6 people are going to be over the age of 60, 65 by 2050. And we're going to have less and less young people around to care for those elders. And if Elon Musk is going to send thousands of us millions of us to Mars, that means we're going to have less hands to work at the fields. At the same time, I spoke once with big agriculture corporation was talking about innovation, and he said that, Omer, most of the time I see innovations and startups that offering high technology for third world countries, whereas what they need is something completely different. They don't need high technology. They have no way to pay for them. The premium does not justify. We need easy solution, simpler solution, scalable solution, somewhat low-tech solution. So if you take all these concepts and combine them together, increasing population that you need to feed in one hand, but it's getting older and older population, that you have less youth, and they combine everything together, you get to the idea that, all right, what's unchanging is the need to produce more food sustainably with less manpower. And technology is limited to how advanced it can be. So I hope it answered your question.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else?
Yeah, Omer, thank you again so much. Very interesting discussion, especially toward the end. So I have your contacts. What are you looking for anything, or like what the purpose of this meeting with that kind of?
Again, I think I don't know if you were here in the beginning, but I mentioned that Omid, I shared the blog post with Omid what I do. Omid and I go way back, and Omid suggested, hey, this is a great topic for discussion in the community. Why not do it with us? Hey, Omid. So it was a pleasure for me to prepare this lecture and to speak with you to share these insights. As I work with startups, primarily early stage and other, obviously some corporations a bit, to find their value axis, to find their core constraints, and to help them find their ideal value creation strategy and innovation. Does it make sense?
Definitely, yes. You have your
Perfect.
secret crystal ball somewhere, probably.
I have something like that. Since we're speaking with in abstract terms, constraints and value and all that stuff, it's not limited to a single vertical. You saw examples from mobility and logistics and longevity and AI and different aspects, because it's not limited to a single thing. With the high form of the power of abstraction is that you don't have to master the details. It very quickly can spot what are the main dynamics, what are the core constraints that influence, that mold the change in a given industry, in a given vertical, and spot the value dynamics over there. So it's not limited to a specific vertical in that sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was caught with like AI topics, and you mentioned something about IoT stuff, but the bottom line, it's all about human nature, I guess, right?
Not particularly. You obviously, these examples relied a lot of humans, but moving forward, it's about who's getting the value, because businesses and startups, they're about offering value to individuals, to businesses. It's about them, about what's valuable to them. If there are as long as we're going, businesses will need to create value for individuals and organizations. This is what it's about. If one day we'll need to offer value to AI entities, that's something different, right? Another issue to tackle, another challenge.
Sure. Thank you so much again.
Thank you for joining and for your time. It was a pleasure.
Great presentation, great presenter, and lots of very uncommon information.
Glad you liked it.
Omer, it was a pleasure and a great honor to host you here in our meetup. Hope to see you again here with some more great ideas and content. Until the next time.
Until next time. Thank you very much.